So what we're looking at here is my sound sculpture for July 2020. I haven't officially named it yet. The main feature of it is not necessarily this old air compressor tank, it's this bowing mechanism here which runs this way. It's a loop of rubber. And the idea is that I've got two bass strings from a piano. Piano bass strings sound very different when they're mounted onto steel compared to when they're mounted onto a wooden soundboard in the traditional way of a piano. And I'm trying to get a very big oscillation from each string, and I'm trying to get these two strings to kind of work in and out of phase, so you might call that a binaural beat. I'm getting some bad sound off the amplifier. I've just turned it on. I don't know what's causing it. The motor is turning now. It's going in a anti-clockwise direction. You can see the string starting to oscillate. And that'll get really much bigger. See if I can get this one going as well. So they're both travelling down the road. Just measuring the travel of this top string. About 15 millimeters. Maybe closer to 12 millimeters oscillation. This one's a bit smaller. This one is oscillating at, yeah, that's more like 12, and this one is actually possibly smaller. The other one doesn't seem right there. Yeah, this one's oscillating just as much, but it's just going a lot faster. The bottom string is much faster, and it's harder to see. Its travel distance is about 13 mil. Yeah, this one's about, it's more like 15. I control the oscillation by the tension on the string with the two tuning mechanisms. Now the buzz in the amp was actually caused by my LED torch. I didn't realise that LED torches would affect the pickups. And we've got two acoustic guitar pickups. And this little nut here, you can see that this slides up and down inside that sleeve. So I can raise or lower the pressure and the height of the string against the bowing mechanism. Yeah, it's a lot better without that buzzing sound. See if I can get this one to travel a bit more, just by starting it off with a percussion flick. It doesn't seem to be oscillating as much now. I don't know what's happened there. There it goes. It's trying to move. It is actually moving. It's just not doing it as much as it was before. Because I've got this tank that's resonating. that also affects the overall pitch or the overall timbre of the whole sound sculpture. And depending on what settings I have, if I was running it into a mixer on the EQ or even just the EQ on the little amp that I'm using, it's only a small 10 watt solid state amp, so it's not really much of a bass signal that's going to come out of there. So you can really hear that changing now. That oscillation's actually increasing, so it's got kind of like this long phase period. Just by pressing down on the arms that hold the tuning mechanisms, that also changes the oscillation of that big string there. You can see it's starting to come in now. It's dropping in and out. Because this is the first string, it's coming around and hitting it like this, in this direction. This is the second string that gets hit. This is going to take all the momentum. It's going to take all the force and energy that's running when that belt actually slips across the head, slips across the string. And it's the same as when you're using a violin bow or a cello bow or any of the other stringed instruments from the orchestra. It's called the stick-slip principle. So the string gets pulled and then it releases, and it gets pulled and it gets releases, and it does that many times per second. And that's what gives you your hertz value. These strings take a hell of a lot of tension. I need to use really industrial sized, a really industrial scale of tuner, just to keep it as taut as possible across the whole length of the string. You might be able to hear now that there's a higher partial that's there. The main string goes through here. There's a hole in this larger bolt, and then this bolt is tightened against that bolt, and that's how it's held in place, so that I don't lose any tension. You can see the amount of reinforcing I've had to do on that extended arm. Once I've got two piano wires on there, the amount of pressure and force that's placed on these horizontal bars is incredible, and I need all this extra structure underneath. So another way that I can try and adjust the height of this string to get it to lift up a little bit more firmly into the path of the bowing mechanism is just to try and lift it up a little bit. It doesn't take much. Let's see if that does anything. Not oscillating as much as it was earlier. Try and tap this up a bit as well. Not really doing much. So tricky. Everything is sort of like a very fine incremental. There it goes. Felt a change then. Went back again. So I've got to play around like this for hours and just get it tweaked. even just touching it, just touching the back bridge there, changes the amount of force that's applied onto the string. And also I'm dampening it, because my pickup is sitting just under here. Here's one of the wires. So I've got two guitar pickups under this steel plate, one here and one here. They're sitting side by side, horizontally. So another thing I can try and do is change the speed of the motor just by increasing the volts. I'm going to take it from 9 to 12 volts. But that might get that bottom string working a bit better. Not really sure if it's done much. No, it doesn't want to, it's very camera shy. It doesn't want to perform for me today. There is movement there, but it's just not much. So if I deaden that string, you can barely hear it, right? It's only just touching it. So I'd like it a bit better than that. Okay, so it's finally starting to build up now. I've changed the speed. I've turned it down to 6 volts. The treble much bigger. It's got down to what are we looking at for treble distance? It's about, it's bigger than 8. Let's put it on 10, see what happens here. 10 millimeters. Yeah, it's bigger than 10. Up to 12. It's about 10 or 11 millimeters of treble, and even on the furthest, right in the middle of the string where it's furthest treble radius from the center of the string, so that would be the core tensile steel wire. They're actually flat on the inside, and the bronze wire is wound over the top, and the reason why it's flat is so that the bronze will grip on the corners of that flat steel. If the steel on the inside of that bronze was round, the windings would rattle too much, particularly on an oscillation like that. So it's really building up there. Put the bass up a little bit more too. This one's gone really quiet, the top one. Get that to work. Yeah, it does. Now it's working. And they interact with each other. So if this one gets moving, this one will slow down a bit. If that one slows down, this one gets moving. And that's how I want it to work. That was the main idea behind putting this bowing mechanism here towards the middle of the string, as opposed to having it down near either of the anchoring points where it's at the tuner end or down on the bridge end. Where you put the bowing mechanism, it doesn't matter if you're using a bow in a traditional way, or if you're using what I'm known for, it's using a wheel like on a hurdy-gurdy. The position of that bowing mechanism along the string affects the frequency structure of what you hear. It might even make the partials go up, or it might make the actual fundamental be lower. So you've got tension of the string, you've got the pressure and speed of the material that's bowing against the string. You've also got the length of the string and the position of where it's bowed. They seem to be the main factors.